Hello there and greetings, my friends. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new here, my name is Alicia, and if you're not new, thank you so much for returning. I really appreciate you guys coming back. In today's video, I'm sharing with you 3 meals that we had for dinner this past week. One brand new one that is super delicious, easy to make. The other one is a modification of a recipe that I already have. And then the last one you guys may have seen before on a previous video, but I'm making it again because I've got to share it with you. So let's get right into it. This first dinner is an easy Instant Pot sweet and sour meatballs. So I know a lot of people enjoy having like those little cocktail meatballs when you go to a party with the grape jelly and the chili sauce, and usually they're made in the crock pot. Well, this one is going to be a dinner recipe. I'm going to actually serve this over rice, but you can serve this over pasta or mashed potatoes if you prefer. So what I'm starting off doing here is I'm adding a slice of bread to a bowl and I'm adding milk to it. I know this is not the norm way, but I enjoy making meatballs this way. I let the milk sit for like a minute or so, just enough to let the milk soak into the bread. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to prepare the sauce on this side. So I'm going to add in some chili sauce to a bowl along with half of this grape jelly. And don't worry, that grape jelly is going to be used again for this exact same recipe as a freezer meal. So to that bread, I'm going to be adding in all of my seasonings along with an egg, and I'm going to mix this up first just with a wooden spoon just to kind of break it up. And it's going to make like a paste-like mixture. Now you can use breadcrumbs if you prefer making it that way, which is totally fine. I just prefer using bread. Now for my meatballs, I am using ground beef and pork. Again, you can use all ground beef, but I want to get some more tender meat in there, so I am adding in some ground pork. And I'm going to be mixing this up. This is going to make about 30-ish golf ball sized meatballs, I would say. And an easy way to roll these out, guys, is make sure your hands are wet, like with cold water. Just go to the sink every once in a while. Make sure they're wet and moist so that your meat doesn't stick to your hands. And once those meatballs are all rolled up, we're going to go to our Instant Pot and we're going to put half of that grape jelly and chili sauce mixture down into the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to add in those meatballs, and then again, come back in with the chili sauce and the grape sauce and cover those meatballs up, because I want to make sure all of the meatballs are coated with this sauce, because I'm not adding in any additional liquid. This is going to make a lot of liquid, which reminds me, if you don't like a thinner sauce, you're going to want to come in with some cornstarch, like a cornstarch slurry at the very end once they are done completely cooking, and mix that cornstarch slurry in just to make it thicker, and I promise it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Once it is done pressure cooking on high for 12 minutes, I'm going to let the meatballs naturally release for 5 minutes before moving the valve over from sealing to venting. And you want to be careful with this because there might be a lot of steam coming out. And if you happen to see any type of liquid coming out, like sputtering and whatnot, just push that valve back for a while, let it hang out for like a minute or so, come back, try again with that wooden spoon, and release the steam. And just to note here real quick, it took about 10 minutes for my Instant Pot to pressurize, so not too long. But here, as you can see, the liquid, it's pretty liquidy, but I don't mind that because I like for that to kind of seep into the sauce or into the rice, and then the rice will soak up all that sauce. So I prefer it that way. But if you want to make it thicker, I'm going to show you how to do that. You're just going to take like 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in a small bowl, add 2 tablespoons of cold water to that, mix it up, and allow that Instant Pot to come back up to a boil with a cornstarch slurry in there. It should only take literally like 2 to 3 minutes to thicken, and this is absolutely phenomenal. So not sure if you could see in that video that I was going to be serving up some cheesy bread alongside our Instant Pot meatballs. And so I never use a whole loaf of French bread when I make cheesy bread. And I'll link that recipe though down below. That is one of our go-to like starters or appetizers or sides that I make with meals. It's so easy. But whenever I use the French loaf, I like to save it for my overnight creme brulee French toast, and that's what one of my go-to like breakfast recipes is. But I decided to switch that recipe up. So what I'm going to be making is essentially an overnight creme brulee casserole. So I'm going to chop up my French bread into little cubes, and I'm going to set it on a wire rack so that it can dry out, because the drier the bread, the more it'll soak up that mixture. So I want to dry it for as long as possible. So if you're new here, I have made this several times times on my channel before. The first time that you guys have actually seen this was in a vacation meals idea video where I prepped this the day before we were leaving on a vacation up to the Redwoods, which, by the way, I live in the Central Valley in California, and we always go on a summer vacation somewhere, and I decided to take you guys along with me and the preparation. I showed you guys how I prepped for vacations like this and meal ideas that you could take just to make vacations cheaper, because it can be so expensive, especially if you have like a larger family. We're a family of 5, so going out every single day for every single meal is going to be ridiculously expensive. Plus, if you are renting an Airbnb or vacation rental home, something like that, you might as well utilize that kitchen that you already have and bring some food at home that's just going to sit in your fridge and maybe rot. Just bring it with you. So if you're needing some vacation meal ideas, because summer is just around the corner, I will link those 2 videos that I have on my channel currently. I'll list them down below for you guys, and I am currently going to be working on a new one because, of course, summer is around the corner for us too. So we're going to be taking another vacation, and I hope to share some more recipes with you guys. So I will be adding the modifications, what I did differently for this version of my recipe down below, but I am adding in some extra liquid in here, so extra milk and extra egg, but keeping everything else the exact same way. But the bake time too is going to increase because of that extra liquid. Also, I'm using Grand Marnier. You definitely don't have to do that. Grand Marnier is not, you're not going to taste the alcohol. What it does is it just gives a deeper flavor of orange. So you can definitely use like orange extract if you have that in your pantry, or you could just forego it completely. But I just think that just adds another element to this dish that makes you go, like, what is that? That tastes really, really good. So I call this an overnight creme brulee because essentially you're supposed to prep it the night before, the day before, and then go to sleep and make it the next morning. But I'm actually doing this in the morning and making it for later that night. But I think the longer it sets, the better. I have let my recipe sit for 30-ish hours, maybe more than that. And that was honestly the best one we've ever had. So definitely the longer you let it sit, the better. And at the halfway mark, you're going to mix it so that the creme brulee sauce that you had on the bottom is going to be mixed in and possibly sitting on the top. And you're going to switch your oven over to broil and let that broil for a few minutes so that the top gets a nice caramely brown. This recipe is a great way to utilize any leftover French bread that you have. Our next recipe, I'm going to be making some enchiladas, but before I make the enchiladas, I need some enchilada sauce. And guys, this is not at all an authentic recipe. I've seen my grandma make enchilada sauce before. It is not complicated, but I like to add a lot of spices and other different things to enchilada sauce. So I will just share that with you guys. I'll write it down below, but super easy to make. You're going to add some oil to a saucepan, and I'm going to be adding in some flour to make a roux. So this is going to be like a thicker enchilada sauce, and you're going to want to cook this for several minutes because you do not want to taste that flour in your enchilada sauce. It's the last thing that you want to taste is flour once we add in all those seasonings. So let that saute for a few minutes, and I'm going to add in some fresh garlic. So here might be an issue with some folks. I love using fresh garlic whenever I can. However, I understand that in enchilada sauce, it needs to be smooth. This is not going to make it smooth. You're going to see some of that minced garlic come up to the top sometimes. You might even taste it every once in a while when you go to chew. My kids don't mind it. I love it. So it's definitely your taste preference. But if you do not want to taste garlic like that, definitely use garlic powder. Just so that you get that nice smooth consistency. Also, what you're seeing here, I am doubling my recipe because I'm going to be making some enchiladas for my freezer, just for a quick freezer meal option. So this is going to be a lot of spices and seasonings happening, but remember, this is double the recipe. So I'm going to be toasting all of the spices. There's a ton of spices going on in here. Chili powder, cumin, oregano. So I'm going to toast that all up, and then I'm going to throw in some tomato paste. Like I said, totally not authentic, but uber delicious. Now, I get the tomato paste from my freezer because there's a lot of recipes that don't call for an entire can of tomato paste. So what I like to do is I like to dollop out the leftover tomato paste onto wax paper and stick that in my freezer. And then once it's frozen, I'll move it all into a little freezer bag or sandwich bag so that whenever a recipe calls for a tablespoon or two, I can just grab it out of the freezer. It defrosts in no time. I actually just threw it in there frozen because I knew it would defrost within like minutes. So I did that. I used some chicken broth as a deglazer, just a little bit at a time, to help not only break up the flour paste that I made, but also break up the tomato paste as well. And then I will incorporate that more and more into the sauce as it continues to smooth out. Also, I do add sugar because there is some tomato paste and tomato sauce in here. And because of all that acidity, I want to make sure that it's a little bit tame. So I just add a little bit of sugar to my sauce. While my sauce is coming up to a simmer, I thought I would introduce myself to those that are new to my channel. So my name is Alicia. We are a family of 5. I have 2 boys that are 11 and 7 and 1 daughter that is 3. And I've been married to my husband for it's going to be 18 years this summer, so quite a while. But on my channel, you can find a lot of different videos. So I have a lot of grocery hauls. I do some meal prepping, lunchbox ideas. I love to share recipes, baking, cooking, all that type of stuff. So if that's the type of content you're looking for, I hope you subscribe and stick around. Now that I have my enchilada sauce simmering on the stove, I'm going to start making my creamy chicken enchiladas made with flour tortillas. So I'm going to start off by using 4 chicken breasts because, like I mentioned, I'm doubling this recipe. So I'm using 4 chicken breasts in an Instant Pot, and I'm going to add in about half a cup of water and season it with salt and pepper. And I'm going to pressure cook this on high for 10 minutes because this is fresh chicken. Now, if you're using frozen chicken, you could definitely do that, and I would do it for about 13 minutes on high. If you have rotisserie chicken in your fridge, definitely use that for this recipe. But what I like to do is I like to make my chicken in the Instant Pot because it's going to heat up my cream cheese, because there is a block of cream cheese in here. Again, figured I should mention this, not authentic enchiladas because I'm using flour tortillas, usually use corn tortillas, and cream cheese does not belong in enchiladas, but in this recipe it does. So I like using the Instant Pot chicken because it's already warm, so it'll help break down my cream cheese. Now this recipe can definitely make at least 14, maybe more enchiladas, and I like to put a lot of filling in my enchiladas. I like to put in at least a 1/4 cup of filling. I know when you go to like a restaurant or something, it's pretty skimpy. I don't like that. When I go to sit down and have enchiladas, I want enchiladas. Like I want a lot of filling. Get it? No? Okay. Anyway, so I want to make sure that my flour tortillas are well filled out. So if you do not like really full enchiladas, you're just going to scale back the amount that you put in, but you are going to have to increase the amount of tortillas that you're using, which could benefit you too, because then you could just be making another freezer meal for yourself essentially, and that would be super helpful for you. Now, one of the other ingredients I like to include in these enchiladas is some frozen roasted corn. I do not thaw it. I just throw it in frozen, but I like the roasted because it just gives a smoky yet sweet flavor to it. If you can't find roasted corn, you could definitely just use the regular frozen sweet corn, but that roasted, I'm telling you, is a major difference. Or even if you roasted your own corn, oh my gosh, that would be phenomenal too. But again, you don't have to include that in this recipe unless you want to, along with diced chilies. I personally like diced chilies in my enchiladas. I'm keeping it out of them just because my kids, I don't think they would enjoy it. I don't know. I probably should make them one time with diced chilies just to see what they would like. I would assume that they wouldn't, but maybe next time I'll try it and see what they think of it. And as far as cheese goes, what I wrote in my recipe was just shredded cheese. Now you can literally use whatever cheese you want. If you have Monterey Jack, cheddar cheese, mozzarella cheese is a really good melting cheese. Use what you have. Pepper jack cheese, I didn't want to be specific. I literally wanted to make this as easy as possible and be accommodating to people and what they have in their fridge. I do not personally like using the pre-shredded bags from the stores just because there's a coating on the outside of that cheese that prevents it from clumping in the bag, and it makes it very hard to melt down. That coating is really, really hard to melt down. So I prefer grating my own cheese at home, but definitely use what you and your family enjoy to eat. And then you're going to pour the sauce over the enchiladas. Now you want to make sure that the sauce is covering the ends of the enchiladas, and you'll see me come in with a fork or a spoon trying to smooth the sauce onto the edges because those will become really dry and crispy if there's no sauce on them. So definitely make sure you get those edges and along the sides as well. You want it like seeping everywhere. And then you're gonna throw on the rest of the cheese and then bake it in the oven for about 25 minutes or so until the cheese is nice and brown and bubbly on top. Super good. I served this with a side of Mexican rice, and I had some frozen Instant Pot refried beans in my freezer. I will link that video where I made them in the description box down below, and of course up in the cards up above here. And of course you can top off your enchiladas with some chopped cilantro, some diced green onions, or even some olives would be really good. Anything that you want to do. And that is it, you guys, for this video. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, friends.